Hey everyone, welcome to Sketch a Day. Once again, I'm back. I I've been getting a few requests from people just about questions about how I sketch, why I do certain things, and how I warm up. First of all, apologies about my voice. I did get sick again. Uh, I guess that's part of living in a very cold area. So picked up a cold again. Plus, I have little kids, so I think I'll be sick for the next 3 years. Anyhow, so pardon my voice and any throat clearing that may happen as we do this video. As always, this is kind of a raw look at how I draw and my process. There's no post-processing or editing here. So as you see it, this is how I draw and how I sketch. So a couple of things. I'm going to be sketching with tracing paper today. I picked this up on Amazon.com, pretty cheap. I think it was around $2 or $3 a pad. This is tracing paper. And with tracing paper, you can do a couple neat things, which I'll show you in the video here. There's also these containers. They're called cistainers. There's my last name that I put on right there. This one is actually called a mini T-lock cistainer. I'll put a link in the video information. And I really like these. I do woodworking, and so I have the big version of these, but I'll show you kind of what's cool here. So these cases are made to interlock with each other, and it so happens that the mini T-lock case is about the right size for my markers. So if I open this one up here, you'll see that I've got some markers in there, some pens, pencils, so forth. If I were a little neater, I could organize them this way. I actually have about 10 of these now. Well, maybe not 10, maybe 8 of these, and I love them because, again, they fit all my materials. They're pretty small, compact case, pretty hard too. You could probably drop this on the ground and it wouldn't bust up. It's just made of ABS, but I think just the way it's been engineered, it's held up pretty well for me, and it was made to carry tools and things you'd find in a wood shop. So again, I'll post a link there. Here's how they kind of link together. They have these T-lock mechanisms, they're called, and the bottom of the case is actually molded so that you get these little feet right here that interlock underneath this little recess in the corresponding case. So again, pretty cool. If you wanted to, you could stack as many of these as you want. And all I have to do, once I've stacked it, just rotate this little handle, boom, like so. If I want to get into the contents of the lower case, I just rotate it all the way over, it snaps. And if I wanted to, I could get into the stuff below while keeping the upper case intact. So it's my new favorite art case. I'm not super organized and I'm not super concerned about things not touching each other, but I find that this is just a quick, easy, throw everything in there and I've got everything I need kind of container. So again, I'll post a link in the video. You can check that out if you want. And as always, anything you do purchase through the links that I post, help support me, help me get better equipment so I can do this more and more often. I'm hoping to do 2 videos a week eventually, should time permit, but tell your friends, subscribe, all that good stuff. Okay, so pad of tracing paper, here's one of the first things you'll notice that I do. So if I have a pad of paper, what I like to do, and for those who've been longtime fans, you've probably seen this trick before, but if you roll your pad, or take the cover actually and roll it back till you have a shape kind of like that, and then put it flat on your surface. And I'm just going to put a crease line right in the cover, right there. It actually helps take some of the strain or pressure off the spine. These tracing paper pads, they're perfect bound, meaning just a hot glue's applied rather to the edges of the pages right here, and then they attach this adhesive spine. So what can happen is if you put too much pressure on the spine, this is how your pages get ripped out, is if you're bending this all the way back, putting pressure on, it's going to start causing your pages to separate. So just a good practice or habit if you're going to use pads of paper like this. If you're using a roll of tracing paper, probably not a big deal. So the next question I get is, okay, what do you do to warm up? And could you just go over your technique one more time? If you've been a fan for a while, you probably know how I do this and why I do it. But warming up typically involves just drawing some pretty primitive and simple things. So I'll do straight lines, circles. There's more challenging things I could do, like circle inside of a square and so forth. The most important thing, however, is as much as possible, I'm trying to lock my wrist, so I'm not moving my wrist like this as I draw. Unless it's a really small area, then I'll kind of draw like that. I'm really trying to draw with, let's see if I can get this in frame, my elbow. So my elbow is going to be my pivot as I'm drawing. So lock your wrist, draw with your elbow and your shoulder, and not your wrist, and you'll have cleaner lines. The next thing you'll notice is when I hold my pen, there's two ways to hold a pen. One is your typical writing hold, which is typically closer to the point of the pen. When you're drawing, you want to reduce the chance of mistakes. So what I tend to do, and this just kind of happened organically over the years, is I hold my pen further up the stem of the pen, and this allows me to really fluidly sketch and express lines without focusing and putting too much pressure on the point of the pen as I'm drawing. So that's the second thing, and I'll try and mention more things as I sketch through here. Oh, the other thing you'll notice is I rotate my page a lot, and this is because as you draw with your shoulder, you'll become accustomed to drawing straight lines at a certain point. So for example, for argument's sake, I have enough experience that I can draw straight lines in pretty much any direction, but let's say that I am accustomed to drawing lines at this angle, and I can get a nice straight line. What it means is if I want a straight line that's parallel to the top edge of the page, what I need to do is rotate my page so that I'm hitting that angle every single time. So if I want to get a line parallel to this edge at the top, I would rotate my page to that angle that's really comfortable. So if I were drawing a square, for example, let's start with one line, 2, 3, and 4. So there's my square. We'll save this square for later. But basically, cool thing. I think there were some comments last time about me wasting paper. Tracing paper is a little cheaper. If you want to, you could even use misprints from a printer to do your warm-ups. So take the backside of paper that's been already printed on and sketch on that. Or if you want to use things like newsprint, I do recommend recycling your paper. So if you have recycling in your area, put it in a recycling bin and do one solid for the environment. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is straight lines. You can do this two ways. One is between 2 points, like so. So just by putting two points on a page and drawing between those 2 points. Now I'm not satisfied with what I'm doing yet, because if you notice, this might be out of frame, but if you notice, each of these points isn't really hitting my line. So I know I'm not as warm as I'd like to be until I start hitting that. I also just hesitated right there. The trick here is not to, right there. The trick is not to focus on the tip of the pen as you're moving across the page, but rather the target. So get an idea of the target. Here's my additional tip as well. I just caught myself doing something I'm used to doing, which is as I'm sketching, I'll actually ghost or hover over the page until I'm fairly confident about where I want to hit. I'm just teaching or preparing my muscles rather to hit a certain point. I didn't ghost that one. There we go. So ghosting or hovering over the page, practicing before you sketch, is another good practice. So I'm just going to go ahead and freehand some lines, which is another thing you can do. If you watch carefully, you'll notice that my wrist here is not pivoting. I'm not trying to draw a straight line with my wrist, but rather I'm using my elbow and my shoulder. If you do enough of these pages, you should feel your shoulder actually starting to warm up, because you're using full, or rather fuller range of motion in that shoulder than you'd normally use. So next is circles. Now, I learned this technique from a friend of mine. His name is Jose Gamboa. Jose, if you're watching, what's up? He teaches a course, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically rapid visualization or sketching. And he has this technique where you'll do your straight lines first, then do circles between those lines. I've kind of adapted the technique a little bit. I don't particularly do this, but it would be good practice to try and, hit those two lines as you draw a circle, right? That one turned out pretty good. Excuse me, right there. But what I did like about his technique is this idea of really warming up the shoulder by going fast, slow, fast, and slow with those circles, and just really small. So I'm just going to go really fast here, pull my sleeve up a little bit. So here we go. Many as you can, fast. And then I like to mix it up, and this is my adaptation. Going slow. And then fast. And slow. So this way you're working on speed and precision in your warm-up. For more of a challenge, you can go a little bigger with those circles. You'll notice that even though those circles were fairly small, I'm trying to still sketch with my shoulder. I wasn't doing this as I was sketching those circles. Okay, so here's my additional tip or secret. You guys are really lucky. I'm giving it all away today. So as I ghost over my page, and hopefully you can see this, I'm actually keeping my pinky finger in contact with the page. It's maybe just a little thing that I do that I like, but I like the sensation, the feeling that I'm in contact with the paper. It gives me an idea of perhaps distance rather than trying to hover freehand without touching the paper. So that sound you hear in the back as I'm rubbing this sound is actually my pinky finger here touching the paper. Okay, so there's my other tip. So next thing is ellipses, and you can combine your line and ellipse practice together. So let's say I wanted to practice drawing lines this way. Again, like I said, I can draw fairly straight lines in any direction now. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is actually change the degree of my ellipses as I move down these lines, and these lines are going to be a line that I'm going to try and put the minor axis of the ellipse on. So what I mean is, here for example, this ellipse has a major and a minor axis. The minor axis rests on that line. As I move down, I'm going to try and open up these ellipses. So just like the circles, I'm trying to be fairly clean. The other challenge here is as you move down, trying to keep the width of these ellipses fairly consistent. Now we can mix it up and do our ellipses between the lines, like so. So the degree of the ellipse means that it's getting more and more open. I can get into a more technical explanation of that, but again, the idea is that the minor axis there is running through all these ellipses, and I'm trying to touch those two lines. Pretty cool, right? And all this will make sense in today's demo why I practice like this. Okay, so there's another one. So you could expect, if you're starting out, you can probably expect to do several pages like this a day to try and get used to drawing an ellipse. The goal being drawing an ellipse with one clean line like that, for example, right? I can tell I'm a little bit fat through the middle here, just a little bit too peaky right in that area. But overall, the idea is to, with your ellipses and your circles, get to the point where you're drawing very clean whole shapes, and that's only going to happen through lots of practice. So avoiding things like that as you draw your circles. That one's pretty good, but I still have a little bit of misalignment there. Okay, so for today's demo, I'm going to draw just a sport water bottle. I have a sport water bottle concept page. So I'm using, again, tracing paper today. Tracing paper is cool because it's cheap, but I can also color on both sides of the paper to create certain effects. So I'm going to start by just drawing some ellipses. Now if you think about a bottle or any type of container, here's my marker container, you can see there's a circle on top, right? As I rotate this, see if I can do this with the camera, you can see that the circle in perspective is an ellipse. So that's why I practice that way. Also, at the top of the container, the ellipse is going to appear a little bit smaller or tighter than the ellipse that would describe the bottom. And that's what happens when you have a change in degree of ellipse. So, with the design in mind, you could either start with some orthographic sketches, so maybe just some quick little doodles of what the sport water bottle might look like. Maybe there's a strap here, there's my little spout, like so. Maybe there's another concept that goes in. This way you can, this is really quick, but this way you can kind of grab the bottle, right? So that one looks kind of like a kitty bottle right now. And then maybe there's another simple concept that emphasizes the height and really is just your regular old threaded bottle and this lid. I'm doing a cross section just to show that it's clear, but let's just say it's a very simple bottle. So I may have 3 ideas like this that I'm going to sketch on this page. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of pick an idea. So let's pick idea number 1. And to do this easily, I can just draw an axis. Now you'll notice that I haven't drawn my axis vertically up and down. And this is just to add some dynamic to the page. So I draw one ellipse. And if you notice, at this point, the bottle gets a little bit wider. And the top and bottom seem to be roughly the same shape. So I'll draw the ellipse that I would draw to describe the bottom. Again, roughly the same shape, or size rather. And then here's my ellipse that I'm going to use to kind of connect these 3. So I'm focusing on these 3 points. I'm going to draw an arc that touches those 3 points. Same thing here. Now it looks like on this concept I've got this little strap, and I want to kind of sketch and show that that strap's going to be used to kind of hold the bottle. So I'm going to sketch this, kind of exaggerate it a little bit. And again, I'm drawing with my shoulder. And maybe this is my little spout that comes up. In fact, I'm going to change my design just a little bit here. So I've got this bite valve that actually protrudes out just a little bit. There's my slit in my bite valve. And adding a little part line right there. Okay, and I want to show that there's some liquid in this, and the bottle is tilting, so the liquid would be at an angle like this, and the reason for that is gravity, right? So if you tilt a bottle, the liquid still stays horizontal because of gravity. And I'm just going to sketch in some wall thickness there, maybe a little detail for that bottom piece. Okay, so here's my other tip. You'll notice that as I'm sketching this, a lot of times I'll sketch fairly quickly, and the reason for that is the faster you sketch, the less likely it is that your hand's going to shake or your wrist is going to do something funny and make you create a funny line. Okay, Now I don't want to load up this page too much, so I'll just stick to 2 concepts. And I'm going to do concept number 2 here. And so I'm just sketching ellipses and offsetting those ellipses to describe the profile as I'm sketching here. My axis is a little bit off, but that's okay. So again, I can connect these lines. Sketch another ellipse for the bottom here. And this one has kind of a bite valve that sticks out. So I'm just going to kind of draw this in. Like so. And I want this to have some way of attaching a strap. I like having straps when I have bottles, so let's say there's some little loop here that's molded in to this plastic piece. We'll come back and define that a little bit. And this one has liquid as well, so I'm going to draw that in horizontal. Okay, and it looks really funny. In fact, I need to open this ellipse up a little bit. So I've opened that up because looking at this ellipse here, as I move down my drawing, I want my ellipses to get wider and wider. So this would be eye level, for example. Nice flat line, and as you move down, they should open up more and more. Excuse me. Okay, so now I have my rough sketch. I'm actually going to rip this off. And remember I said tracing paper has 2 sides, so we can do some cool things with transparency, for example. So I'm going to take a blue marker. Tracing paper also will knock down the opacity of your marker a little bit. So as I sketch this in on the back side, now I'm on the back side of the tracing paper. And I'm just going to kind of shade this in. When I flip this over, you'll see that the opacity is a lot less on the front. You can do the same thing here. Of course, water isn't blue necessarily. It's more reflecting the sky, for example. So the reason I'm using blue, however, is because as humans, we look for associations in the things that we see. So by using blue, I'm able to suggest that this is water without even having to label it. And I don't think I have the right blue, but I'll make do with it. And I'm just going to sketch on the front with the blue marker as well, just a little bit. I probably need to do a full explanatory demo on markers as well, but if you're trying to use them, just kind of follow along, and if you need to rewind a couple times and see how I did something, that works as well. Okay, so for the bottom of the water bottle, I'm going to use a nice gray here. And I don't want to make my sketch too heavy, so I'm just going to pick a view and kind of render this view a little bit, keep it sketchy. Just like so. So there's my gray. And the top of this, I'm going to say is green. Let's find a nice green marker here. And I can go on the back of my tracing paper. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying to think of a light source and the surface geometry as well. So because the spout is sticking out, for example, and I do have, looks like I have some shadowing going this way. So I'm going to make under here on the spout shadowed. And surfaces like this can be hard to apply marker, but we're keeping it pretty sketchy today, so don't stress out too much. Okay, so when I flip that over, it looks pretty flat, but I can actually sketch, or rather color on the front a little bit to punch, for example, my shadow core, and this marker is actually drying out just a little bit. Okay, so I've got a primary and a secondary view. I'm going to add just a little bit of line weight here and here to kind of clean things up just a little bit. So I've got a Pentel sign pen that I'm using. And I'm just trying to be really careful with my lines as I draw them here. And thickening them up so that now this is starting to pop off the page and also command a little bit more visual presence on the page as well. Okay, just a couple of dots here, and this is going to just simulate some texture on this gray part, for example. And maybe this spout is actually molded out of rubber, so it's a separate part on my bottle. Or not rubber, but rather silicone. So what I could do here is add a part line, just a couple little stipples. If I need to, I can add a note. So silicone. And I'm going to add a shadow. Just basically an ellipse, just suggesting that this is kind of hovering a little bit. Just kind of helps things feel a little lively. Now I'm not going to add tons of color or detail to this other sketch because I want there to be some variety as I sketch this page. So you can see I've just added some line weight here. Like I said, I really like the strap detail, so I'm going to highlight that with a circle over the sketch. I stole that from a guy named Carl Liu. You can look him up. Great artist steal, right? You can look him up. He's a phenomenal illustrator and designer. You can check out his work, Carl Liu, C-A-R-L-L-I-U. And I believe he's based out of Taiwan. Again, super talented dude, but check out his sketches, and you can find some pretty good inspiration rather there. So I'm just doing a little abbreviated marker right in this circle area because I want to highlight the strap. Maybe it's something that's important to my design or my idea or showing my line of thinking. So I may highlight that, add some notes. This isn't real text obviously, but I would add probably some text there to kind of highlight that area. So there's just a quick sketch page of this water bottle. You can see again just a quick demo on some of the little things that I do. I'd probably take a little bit more time on this and clean it up, but I think we're pushing almost 30 minutes here, which is kind of not what I wanted to do with this channel, but hopefully you guys appreciate just some of the knowledge here. I think learning to draw as I've been doing this for a few years now is as much about learning to see. So seeing relationships between things, being smart about things. So using your warm-up pages if you're going to be doing bottles or something like that to just get yourself ready to draw and capture your idea. As always, you can find me online. I'll put up the links as well. I'm on Facebook at Sketchaday. Instagram, you can follow me there. I've got about 13,000 followers, looking to push that as well. Just want to share as much as I can with as many people. So if you know someone who would love to see the work that I publish, check it out there. If you're a YouTuber and you don't really Instagram, but you use Facebook, just visit me, facebook.com/sketchaday. And I post on YouTube once a week. That's my commitment, and I will be doing that at least once a week, hopefully twice. I guess I've kind of combined two videos into one here, so I'll leave this as one video. But if you're a YouTuber and you don't know much about me, just visit those sites, Instagram, Facebook. You can also find me at sketchaday.com, or just Google my name, Spencer Nugent, and you'll be able to find some of the things I've done. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, tell your friends, tell your wife, kids, all that good stuff. All right, till next week. See ya.